Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Faye Chli. I am the head of the onboarding department in Classter. And today we will see together the admission module for the higher education institutions. We will have a separate webinar for the K12 institutions. So my agenda for today is the following. We will see the admission intakes and the general admission settings. We will go through the admission requirements and consents, any extra question, qualification, or documentation required from the applicants. We will see the possibility to have an application fee, so the applicant will not be able to submit the application if he doesn't pay the fee. And also the possibility to sending financial offers to the applicants, since a lot of institutions used to send officially the financial offer, and the applicant has to accept the offer before the finalization of the registration. We will also see the self-enrollment to extra services that our institution provides, like gym or lunch fees and so on. The application status, the management of every application after the submission, all the steps required from the admission office until the student becomes registered, interviews and entrance examinations, and finally, last but not least, the communication between the institution and the applicants, and notifications to the admission officers when an application is submitted, when an offer is accepted, and so on. Our vision for the admission is to keep an easy process for the applicants, step to step, until they submit their application, and to automate the process as much as possible for the admission officers. The main functions of the admission for the higher education is an easy sign up for the applicants, the submission of the personal information required and any documentation for the admission, customized application requirements per program, so we can also have specific questions and specific documentation required based on the program that the applicant will select, entrance qualifications, exams and interviews, consents for the admission with e-signature as well, official letters for the application stages, like the acceptance letter, where we inform the student that he's officially accepted. So now they will log into the student portal, see their timetable, academics, and so on. Official financial offers, where we can communicate to the applicant and send the exact offer, so the applicant can accept or reject the offer through the admission portal. And finally, the progress applications for the alumni. In case of masters, for example, so in order to apply for this master, you must complete this bachelor first, and so on. Here I have some screenshots from the letters. To the left, we see the email. Everything is customizable. You will have your own logo, your own template. We will see later that you can have also dynamic fields in the template emails, the student name, the student program, and so on. And also an official offer as attachment in our email. To the right side, I have a screenshot from the PDF. So all you need to do for this process is actually to create the offer in Classter for the applicant, and then send a bulk message so All this data will be produced automatically from Classter and sent to the student. And one example from an acceptance letter, where we welcome the student to our institution and we inform them that when our lessons will start and that they should use our system to see their timetable, transcript, and so on. So it's demo time. Let's switch to Classter. So in our previous webinar for the higher education, we saw that for the main entities in the main settings, our four main entities, faculties, programs, degrees, and semesters, the configuration may be completely different between the customers based on their structure. In my demo today, in the first entity, I have faculties and locations. In more simple cases, here we could only have our institution, just one entity, one option here. And under this, we always have the programs, the educational programs, which may be connected to one or multiple faculties or locations. And then we have two more fields. In my demo today, the second one is the degree. Or in another scenario, this could be the year and the semester of the program. And finally, here I have the semesters in the final field. In another scenario, that could be a specialty or something other under the program. Keep in mind that for the admission, we always open programs available for the admission, okay? All the other entities, we can either leave them open and available for the applicant to select, or we can hide them from the admission, so the student will only select the program and all the other options will be saved automatically from Classter. For example, if we don't have multiple locations or faculties, we don't need to open it for the applicants. Everyone will be saved automatically in the one location or institution we have. Now, we will start with the general admission settings, and then we will go through a test application, and I will show you step by step from my demo, from my admission configuration, where you can find every configuration. So we will start from the admission and drop down lists. The first important setting we must have in all our periods is an application intake. So we must have at least one intake in each period. In my example, in my demo now, the academic period is the entire academic year. In another scenario, the period may be semester 1 and semester 2 from the year. In any case, I must have at least one intake open with the relevant dates in each period. For example, right now that I have the entire year as a period, if I have new students in both semesters within the year, I can have one application intake from December to January, for example, with the semester A, the first semester of the year, and another intake from May to June for the second semester. So based on the date of the application, my applicants will be saved automatically to the relevant intake. And then I will be able to filter them based on the intake. So in every semester, I will take only the relevant students to review and communicate. The name of the intake is custom. You can have, for example, semester 1 here. The dates. And we will see later the application types that are connected to each intake. For example, in this intake, in any case, we will have it open for new applicants. Okay, and then we decide if we have multiple application types like progress applications, transfers from other colleges and so on, we open the relevant application types for each intake. The second drop-down list is the application category. In any case, we will need at least one category here, the normal application. This means that this is a single application in our open programs. The other types, like the provisional application, they may refer to specific degrees. In my case, in my demo, the second entity is the degree. This means that we must have a special management for these applications, so they are saved as provisional, and then we can filter them accordingly in our lists. In another scenario, if in this entity I had years and semesters, for example, usually we open for the admission only the first year and the first semester for the applicants. So they cannot apply directly for the second semester or the second year. But if I want to leave more options open, for example, for students who claim that they have participated in other certifications, they have completed other courses, so they don't have to complete your first semester modules as well, we can leave the second semester and the second year open for the admission. And then we will see later in the settings that we will say every application which is connected to the second semester or second year will be automatically saved as provisional. So this means that we will have to ask from some additional information, maybe from the students, and make sure, confirm that yes, they can start from the second semester, for example. And the same for the degrees or any entity that I may have here under the programs. The next list is the application types. In any case, we will need the new applicant type. This is for completely new students, students who were never existed in Classter before. Okay, we enable every application type to our programs, to the relevant programs. For example, if we have programs which should be open only for progression, like a master where you have to complete the bachelor first, we should not open them here in the new applications. We should open them in the progress applications only. So in the progress application, for example, we see that this is the progression. And we can enable these progress applications for alumni, for example, so they will be available in the graduated students portal. Transfer from another college. This is again for new applicants. In order to just distinguish these two types of students during the application. So the student will select if he is a new applicant or if he wants to transfer from another program, from another college, sorry. So the next setting is the application status. You will find a set of status from our templates. Here we have all the stages required from the submission of the application until the student becomes registered. So here we have all our stages. We will definitely need a draft and one submitted status. And all the next steps depend on the institution. Okay, for example, the next status may be the under review. Of course, you can order the status like that, drag and drop them in a logical order. So our next status may be under review. The status are important because you can change the status every time that you proceed to the next stage. So you will be able to filter the students accordingly and know what you have done, what you have not done yet. We can have a rejected application status in case that we may reject any applicants. The provisional acceptance I have in my example, it has to do with the initial acceptance from the institution, where we will send the offer to the applicant, the financial offer, and we accept the applicant to accept or reject the offer. The special setting that this status has is the type provisional acceptance. So when the type of the status is provisional acceptance, then if the student log into the portal, he will see two options in the application management: accept or reject. These options will appear only with this type when we change the student into this status. And then we have offer accepted and offer rejected for my example, because we need, if we have this process and we send a financial offer to the applicants, we need to have two different status, different from the institution rejection and the institution's acceptance, in order to say that the offer is accepted by the applicant. So when the student will log into the portal and accept the offer, his status will automatically change into this one, offer accepted. Or if he rejects, the status will be automatically changed into the offer rejected. We may have additional steps like waiting for a payment or other steps that we may require. And the last status is the registered student. If you need to make a change here, you will have to keep in mind that you will need to make the change here in the application status and also in the main settings in the student status. We have two status in Classter, the application status and the general student status. First of all, one applicant may have multiple applications. This means that one of his applications may be in the stage under review or even rejected, and the second application may be in the status provisional acceptance or even becomes registered. This means that the student will have two applications with two different status, but the general status of the student will be the biggest one. Let's say if I have one rejected and one accepted, my general status is accepted automatically. So you will see here that every application status I have is connected to the relevant student status. This is only a matter of configuration. When you change the status into an application, then Classter will automatically make the changes into both places. Okay. Second possibility we have with this configuration is that the student status, the general student status, is visible to the back office users, but it is not visible to the applicants. the applicants can see only the application status. This means that I can have different descriptions between the application status and the student status. For example, here, my status for the provisional acceptance when we send the offer, my description is provisionally accepted, waiting as answer for offer. But what the applicant will see is just provisional acceptance. Or even in the rejected application, we have rejected an application and we have requested the student to reapply. The student will not see all of these rejected application. He will just see reapply. Now, in order to make a change, if you want to create a new state, for example, if you want to remove a state, it's simple. You will remove the stages from our template. If you want to create new stages, you will have to create the state first in the main settings and in the general student status. So main settings, drop-down lists. I will search for students fields and status. Here we will find all the status of the student, even graduated, pre-registered, any other status that we may have in our system, not only the admission status. Okay, you will see inactive, withdrawal, and so on. So if I want to create a new state for the admission, I create a new status here. I will add the description of my status. And the status type will be admission. We can have a color. If we already had the application status, we would connect it from here, but it doesn't matter. I will connect it later from the application status. The provider action when we create a new student status has to do with the user account of the student, like to create or disable the account. In that case, usually don't do any action. So just select do nothing. And the other options are not relevant to the admission status. They mostly have to do with registered students, if they will be included in our records and so on. So we just ignore the other options for the admission. So I save my student status and then I go back to the application. And I will create the same status here and connect it to the student status. Now, the type of the states, I think it is clear. For example, we must, as we said, we must have at least one draft. This means that if the type is draft, it means that the student, the applicant, has just completed the sign up and maybe some of his personal data submission, but he has not submitted the application yet. Submitted means that the applicant has completed everything and finalized and submitted the application. Reapply means that the student was previously rejected to this program, but we let him to reapply again after 1 year, for example. Reviewing means that we have taken the application and it is currently under review. Verified, it means that we have verified all the data of the application. And finally, rejected application, either from us or from the applicant for the offer, or accepted. Underpayment means that we are waiting for a payment before we register the student. And finally, the provisional acceptance. This is used in my example in the stage where we send the offer to the applicant, and the applicant has to log in and accept or reject the offer. So when the applicant's status is in the type Provisional Acceptance, and only in this type, when the applicant log into portal, he will see two options in the application management: accept or reject. And of course, we will see later in the settings that based on the answer of the student, his status will automatically change into offer accepted or offer rejected, for example. This is all about the status and the stages. And finally, we have the entry requirements in case that we want to keep a track of extra requirements like entrance examinations, interviews, and so on. And we can keep also later the points for each one of those and calculate also the final points of the students. So here we just create new options with the relevant type. So you will find the possibilities of Classter here, like entrance examinations, interviews, and so on. So let's proceed to the admission settings. We finished with the admission drop-down lists. This is the first step before we go to the settings, because you will see later that we will need, for example, the admission status for the settings configuration. So let's proceed to the admission settings. So first of all, we have to enable the admission for our institute. We can find the sign up URL for the applicants. You can take this link and add it in your website, for example. The third setting in the list is the personal data of the students. So if I click on open, we will see all the available fields that we can open for the admission. So here you will find actually most of the fields that you have in the student card, like the basic data, the name, the gender, the birth date, and so on. Identification data like ID card number, passport, expiration dates, and so on, tax IDs, etc. Birth data, birthplace, country. Demographics like nationality, religion, and some custom fields that you may have. The contact data of the student, contact email, phone, additional information, the address of the student, and also additional addresses, work data, medical data, parents data in case that you want to open a guardian or a next of kin, for example. Extra relatives data. And finally, we have the financial data in order to say who is the payer, and the custom fields that you may already have in your student cards. Now, in order to open any of these fields, you go into the edit option of each field. In the literal, you can have a custom label for this field for the admission. If you leave it empty, of course, it will take the default label from here. But keep in mind here that you cannot completely change the sense of the field. So you cannot take the first name and make it last name, for example, because the label for the back office users will still be this one. This literal will be used only for the admission, the application form. Some customers used to add here, if they are in some special countries, they may add the label in English and also in their language. Or you may change the terminology in some cases. For example, you may change the gender, sex. Okay. but don't completely change the sense of the field, because it will confuse the data later in your own management. You can have a placeholder with some information for the field and also an info message. So an info icon will appear next to the field where you can explain what you require about this information. And finally, we have the admission settings where we can make the field visible and required. You will find multiple settings here. The second one is for the re-registrations to the next period for registered students. Now we need the admission settings to make a field visible and required or not required. Okay, so you will see the relevant icons here, so you can understand if a field is visible and required. The blue icons are associated with the admission. And this is how we open all the fields from the personal data of the students. We save the settings here. And we'll come back to our general settings. So the next option is to enable the admission mode with multiple applications per applicant. Now, the main difference if we enable this option is that if it is enabled, the applicants may create multiple applications, but also this setting will affect the stages in our admission portal. So when this setting is enabled, the program selection is the last step, the final step of the application form. If the setting is disabled, then the program selection is the first step, and then we have all the personal data and documents, submission, consents, and so on. Okay, today we will see the mode with the setting enabled. In any case, even if this setting is enabled, you can still have restrictions in your application intakes with a maximum number of applications per student. The application intake has a limit, so you can still add limit 1 here. Okay, or more. So we will see this example today because this is the most usual. Okay. User types that can apply. For higher education, it's students only usually. Then we have a general start and end date. Keep in mind that the settings that we will see here are all required in order to manage and have our admission open. So these dates are used for the sign up process. As we will see later, the applicant has initially to sign up as in all the systems, and after he verifies his email, then he will submit the personal information and then submit the application. Now, we have seen dates in the intake as well. These dates here are the general for the sign up, and the dates in the intake are related to the applications, the last step. So if these dates are open and we don't have any intake open, then the applicant will manage to sign up. They will also manage to complete their personal information, but they will not be able to submit an application until the intake is open. They will get an info message that we will see later, that currently our intakes are closed. The next setting is the academic periods, which are available for the admission. In my demo right now, our academic period, as we said, is the year. In another scenario, it could be semesters. So we could open the next 2 semesters available for the admission. We can have multiple periods here. Next, we enable the admission for the following locations, faculties. It is the first entity I have here, faculties, locations, or my institute. In any case, I must have at least my institute open. If I have one option here, it must be open. If I have multiple, I have to open the relevant faculties or locations for the admission. The next step, as I explained previously, the applicant creates an application for the program. The other options are not mandatory for Classter. You can hide them from the admission if you want. If you decide to hide them, then you can use, if you have multiple locations, you can use either this setting or this setting. So with this setting, Classter will automatically save all the applicants in the location that you will select here. With this setting, if our programs are always related only to one faculty or one location, we can use this setting, automatically calculate the faculty based on the program. Okay. Otherwise, if these two are not set up, then this entity will appear in the admission portal, so the students will have to select. The next setting is the default admission status. So in any case, we need status for all the stages in portal. Okay, so if the student has not proceeded further and has not submitted the application, then the student will be saved as draft. Okay. The default security role for the student. This is the roles from the role management, where we set up the privileges for each type of user. So when we change, when the registration is finalized and we change the student status into registered, then he becomes a student for Classter, not an applicant yet. So he will log into the student portal and he has to take a role, a user role, in order to get the privileges. So this is the default role that will be assigned to the students when you make them registered. The admission data categories to be displayed as separate types. We will see this setting later when we will explain the data categories in general. And the final setting is to hide the other gender option, because for the gender we have male, female, and other. If you want, you can hide it. And finally, we have an information message for the case I said previously, when the student will sign up or has already signed up from the previous year, maybe. So he still has his login details. In order to inform them that right now there is no active intake. Okay. This is customizable. As you can see, you can change it. Let's proceed to the sign up and applicants portal. I will not explain everything one by one, but I will explain the most important settings. So, identification documents required for the sign up. In any case, during the sign up, since all sign ups and all systems are based on the email of the user, in any case, if you have a registered student and he tries to sign up again with his email, Classter will do the mapping and will understand that the student already exists in the system, so it will not let him sign up again, but will give a message, an information message that the student already exists, you should contact your school. But additionally to the email, since we may have multiple emails in our days, you can use additional identification based on the national ID card number, for example, the tax ID, social security number. In my case, I have used the national ID number. And the next setting is connected to the previous one, and we can enable the option to enter a passport if I don't have a national ID. So we let the students select. Admission sign up extra fields. As we will see later, we have first name, last name, and email as required fields from Classter, but you still have the option to open some more information in the sign up. Usually we open at least a mobile phone in order to have some details for cases where they have completed the sign up but never proceeded further, in order to have something to communicate with them and see what happened. And the next setting is in order to, it comes in conjunction with the previous one. And we can make any of these fields as required as well. Otherwise, it's just open, not required. Then we have some info messages, but we will see them later in practice when we will do our example. The next important setting is the personal and admission data tabs. So in order to complete the admission, the application, we must have at least the main personal data open. So here you will find all the default tabs from Classter. In my case, I have opened the most usual ones, the main personal data, where you will find all the fields we opened in the general settings previously. The admission data, where we will see in a while, they are here in the main settings, consents and admission data. It is the place where we create any other customized question and requirement for the admission, documentations, and so on. The consents, in case that we have consents. And I also have the enrollments, because in my example, I will show you the services enrollments, as we said previously, like to gym or lunch fee and so on. Okay, that's all from here. And finally, before we go to our example, we will see the application management settings. So we have completed everything that has to do with the sign up and the next steps until the student creates the application, select the program. So in the application management, we will have to open our programs. Here you will find all the programs and degrees combinations. If in your institution you have programs and years and semesters, here you will find all the programs and years and semesters combinations. Okay, as I said previously, usually we open only the first year and semester, or you can open also more as provisional applications. So in my case, I have opened most of my programs and degrees. Only these programs will be available in the admission for the applicants. Okay. The next settings have to do with what I said before, that the degree, the semester is not required to have them open for the applicants. You can close them if you just have one option here, or you just want to open the first year and semester. So the students will not need to see them at all. They will be hidden, and Classter will automatically assign the first option that will be found. Okay. The academic levels, this is one field in the programs. If you open your programs in the first tab, you will see the academic level field. This is a customizable field. You can change the label completely and also the values. Okay. So you can use the levels as filtering in the admission portal. So the students will select, for example, first the bachelor. So they will take only the programs which are connected to the bachelor, okay, or masters and so on. So if you really use and need this field for the admission, you will open it from here. This setting is related to the provisional applications, which require a special management. So in my case, I have connected this to one degree where it doesn't mean that we don't accept all the students, but for this degree, they must have a very special requirements. So we have to do a more special review. Or in another scenario, as I said, it could be years and semesters here. So here I could open second semester, second year, and I could make them as provisional. Application status that lock the personal data edit. This is a very important setting. Here we will find all the stages we saw previously in the drop-down lists of the status. And it's very important to lock the edit after we take the application and we start the management from the school. So after the application is submitted or when it is under review, provisional accepted, accepted, waiting payment registered, while the student is in this status, he will not be able to make any changes. Okay, I have left it open only for the draft, of course, because they can submit some fields now, log out and log in later to complete the application, and the rejected application where we may require other information or we may let them apply again later. Allow applicants to submit applications with duplicate programs. This is because in our example, the educational program consists of the program and degree. So in that case, we will allow the students to apply for the same program in 2 degrees inside the same program or more degrees, not only one. Otherwise, if this is closed, the student, if he applies in the program in one of the degrees, then he will not be able to apply again for the same program for any other degree. Application submission default values. So the default application status for draft applications before the student submits the application, he should be saved in the draft status. All of these are very important. In order to be able to save an application from the student portal, we must have a default draft status and a default submitted status. Then we have the application tabs. In my example, I have opened the services enrollments. So we will see how we can enable the services enrollment, the self-enrollment for the applicants. Ask for financial agreement. I will also enable this later and I will show you how it looks like. It actually works for institutions where the price is related to the program and we show to the students the default price of the program and also our default arrangement installments plan. So they have to accept that they are aware from the financial fees, from the tuition fees, and they can also see all the installments plan, the amounts and everything before the submission. It will be required. Application submission notification settings. This is for our admission officers. The employee who will receive a notification every time that an application is submitted. Okay, so here we can select one from our employees. Of course, our mail gun, the email integration must be already enabled in our advanced settings in order to be able to send generally emails from Classter. And of course, our employee must have the contact email in his own card. Okay. And one more free text email in order to receive the applications as well. Then we have some info messages again, which we will see them later in practice. We will go through our demo and I will go back here to the settings and show you how you can change every step. And the final settings, important, are again some default status for the acceptance. This is the default status which will be used when the student will accept our offer, if we have the process I explained before. And this is the default status that the application and the student will be assigned if he rejects the offer. Now, in case that we have multiple applications, when the student accepts one of the applications, the offer from one of them, then all the others will automatically change into rejected. Or you may have a different status for this option. So you can distinguish the ones that were rejected offer or just rejected because the student accepted another program. And the final important settings here have to do with all these official letters we will see later that we can create in order to avoid mistakes. For example, the acceptance letter can be sent only in this status. Actually, this is not correct. It should be sent into registered, waiting payment, accepted offer, provisionally accepted, and so on. So this means that even if I try to send the acceptance letter to a rejected application, then the email will not be sent. So we have a check here. So now I will switch to another browser, and we will create an applicant together, and I will show you step by step all the customized fields, and I will show you how you can change all of them. So I will take the sign up URL from the general admission settings. In case that you have multiple institutions in Classter, multiple licenses, not just multiple locations inside the same institute, but multiple institutions, you will see this option here. So the first option is to select in which institute we want to apply. Otherwise, Classter will directly show you this page. Now, the first info message for the sign up page explains to the applicant how this process is made. And you can add a link with a prospectus with a brief, description of your programs. And of course, you can also give some contact details in case that someone has issues and cannot proceed. This info message and also the other fields that we see here, the name, the gender, and the email are required from Classter. You cannot close them, but the other fields like the national ID or even the passport, if I don't have a national ID, this changes automatically into passport. The mobile phone, the address, and the city. It's up on you if you want to open them or not. So all these settings, they are in the sign up and applicants portal. We are in the sign up page, so we will find all of them here. The extra fields we said, then actually let's start with the national ID. The national ID is the settings we saw before. Identification document. Enable the option to enter a passport if I don't have a national ID. This is this option. And the other details are the next setting, admission sign up, extra fields. And finally, this info message is here, the registration instruction information. Okay. I will use a temp email for my example. And I will sign up. When I sign up, I have one more info message where we usually inform the applicants that they will receive an automated email. They have to verify the email. If they don't see the email, please check your spam or click on its resend and so on. This is still configurable. And this is again in the sign up and applicants portal settings. It is the next info message. Message to display after a successful sign up. In this stage, the student will receive the welcome message, and they will have to verify their email and their account. This is a template email. As all the other emails that we will see later, we can change this template completely. You can add your own logo, your own message here. All the templates are found in the advanced configurations and templates editing. Okay, you can search for the template from here, but this template is actually the first one in our list, admission new user creation. In most of the cases, you will find default templates from us. What you need to do is to just take a copy. So create a new template based on this one. Okay. You will see that the template is HTML format. This means that we can copy and paste any format. You can have a special layout in a PDF, in a Word document. You can copy and paste it here. You can directly copy and paste pictures or your logo. You can change the text. And to the left side, you will see the dynamic fields for each case. Now, this template is used for the new user creation. So in any case, we have the first and the last name of the user, the username or the email, the first password, the verification link. This link is used here in this icon. And the login link. In order to use these fields in your text, you just drag and drop them to your content. So you can completely change the email as well. Keep in mind that the language here is based on the language that the end user uses at the time when the email is sent. So usually, if we don't have different templates per language, the language is all. So it doesn't matter in which language the applicant is, he will still receive this template. I will go back to my example. I will verify the account. I'm one step away. I will be redirected to the login page when the verification is completed. And then I take my username and my password, my first password from the email, and I will log into the application. All users have to accept the terms and conditions from Classter. You have the option to add your own terms in the end of our terms if you want. And finally, this is the dashboard of the applicants. This is still an info message. This is configurable. You will find this text in the admission settings again. In the sign up and applicants portal, if you scroll down, you will find the dashboard introduction text or instructions in the applicants portal. Okay, this is against HTML. So you will see that the personal data and the application management are links. In my example, these links redirect to the relevant menus. It is exactly the same thing if I click here or here for the personal data. So it's good to have some instructions for our applicants in the dashboard. It's very helpful. And then we have all the information required for the application. And the last step is the application management, where the applicant will select the program. The first step is always the personal data, where we will see all the fields we have open from the general admission settings, available fields configuration, the fields we saw previously. The setting, if they're required or not, is in the settings. The next steps, I think the first step is clear. We will see all the personal data fields that we have opened from the settings. Okay, the contact data, home phone, mobile phone, and so on. Now, let me explain about the next steps. I will go back to the settings. To the sign up and applicants portal, to the personal data tabs to be visible in the admission, the setting we saw before. So the default steps from Classter are the main personal data, the admission data, and the consents, let's say. Okay. Here, we don't see admission data, but we see custom steps. The admission data in my example is the other data here. Now, in case that you just need some personal information and just a list of additional data, you can just open this tab from Classter, the default tab. You can change the terminology from this tab from the main settings and customize terminology. If you go to the customized terminology, the admission fields, and search for admission data tab, this option, I have renamed this tab into other data, and it is this tab, other data. So in this step, I just have some questions grouped based on the theme. For example, hey, here I have a school certificate, health information, and so on. You can have multiple questions. But if you still want to organize your questions and keep them as different steps, like the extra languages, work experience, and so on that I have here, you will need to create these steps as documents categories. So, except for the admission data, we will create extra steps, custom steps for the admission. This is done from the main settings and drop-down lists. In the system, I will search for document categories. We will see in a while that all the information I have here are saved as admission documents, admission data in Classter. So with the categories, we actually organize our documents, our data. Here you will see that I have 6 documents categories, but only the 3 of them are as different steps here. This is because these categories and the settings are together with some, this is together with some settings in the admission where we will define which of those should be shown as separate tabs. So, extra languages, for example, I have also the option allow multiple entries here. This is why if I go to the extra languages certifications, give me a minute. You will see that I have the option to add new, add more. So I have the option to my applicants to add multiple extra languages. If I click here, it will give me new sections. So I can add multiple languages. And the unified layout, this is in case we will see in a while how we will create the admission data. In case that we need multiple admission data, multiple admission documents for the same category, we usually have use the unified layout where if I have multiple admission documents, Classter will still group all of them into this section, the extra languages certifications. And of course, we can either make them required or not. In my example, I don't make them required in order to proceed quickly. So here we create our categories, and finally from the admission settings, from the sign up and applicants portal, no, sorry, I think this is not here. This is in the first tab, the general admission settings. You will find the admission data categories to be displayed as separate tabs. So even if I have 6 categories used, only the 3 of them are as separate steps in my admission form. Okay. Now let's see how we create all these questions. From the main settings again, you will find the menu consent and admission data. Let's take the extra languages certifications. So I will search for languages. Okay, so this is an admission data document. The submission status means that the back office users will have an option to confirm if this document is reviewed and submitted from the applicant. Allow multiple entries. We saw that in the category as well, but it is 2 different things. As we said, in the category, we can have multiple admission documents. So if I have the option in the category, even if I have multiple admission data with 20 fields, let's say, it will still multiply all of them. So it will group them as one common section. Here we have a general description of our admission data. And then I have the questions. The entity for the admission data should be student, and the type, usually it is student registration. It means that both the back office users and the applicants will be able to see these questions. Otherwise, it can be only for the institutes, for example. And finally, the document category. In my case, in this case, the category is extra languages. This is why this question will appear here, or this section actually, all the questions. If I didn't have any category in my admission document, then these questions will appear in the default tab from Classter, the admission data, which are renamed into other data. Okay, so if there is no document category assigned, the questions will appear in the default tab from Classter. If you want to have your own steps, you will have to create categories, connect them to your questions, and enable them as separate tabs in the admission settings as well. Now, for the questions, you will find multiple fields available from Classter for its admission data that you will create. It doesn't mean that you will use all of them, of course. You may use only 1 or 3. We have 2 drop-down list questions. Is this question the language? Or it can be a question like yes or no. So this is a drop-down list question with the relevant list of answers. Now, the list of answers is created from the main settings and drop-down lists again. In the drop-down lists, this is the place where we had the document categories as well. We will set for dynamic drop-downs. Okay, so here we have all the answers like yes or no, or even this kind of answers like the languages. Okay, So we can create new drop-down lists. And after we create the list from the details option and their values here, we will add all the answers. Okay, agree, disagree, the languages, and so on. We can add our own answers. And then we connect this list to our question, to our drop-down question. We have 2 date fields. And again, we have the question. We have 4 free text fields. The one here and 3 more free text in the additional data. We have 1 comment field. The main difference between the comment and the free text is that the comment section is bigger. And finally, we have 1 file, only 1 file in each data. But if we allow multiple entries, if we don't use the maximum number of files, the student can upload multiple files, but into the same question. So if the files are different, then we should create a second admission data within the same document category, maybe or not. So here we can upload files. In order to open these fields, you have to enable them from this option, but also make them public, because only if they're public, they will appear to the admission portal, to the students. And finally, we have the order. So it doesn't matter if the order here is complicated, you can still use your own order. So this is my first question, second, third, or it could be different. And finally, the filters per program. If the question is the same for all programs and we want the question to appear here in these stages, then we should not apply any filter. If the filter is empty of the program, then all these questions will appear normally in our first steps, since we have not yet selected our program. Okay, because if I apply filters, even all of them, it means that there is a filter. So Classter will expect you to select your program first and then give you the question. So for all of these questions in the first steps, that we want them in the first steps, and they are common for all programs, then we should not have any filter. So I want to show you something more for the admission documents. So here I have recommendation letters, and the first question is if you have any recommendation letter. If the applicant says no, then okay, he can proceed. If he says yes, we can have more questions appearing below. Okay, how we can do that? In this specific admission data, so in order to do this, we must use the drop-down list, the first drop-down list question. Okay, because the appearance of the next questions is based on a positive or negative answer. So, do you have any recommendation letter? The answers is yes or no. And in the display properties, in the advanced settings here, we will say that we will show the rest of the admission data only if this question, if this answer actually is set as positive or negative, it's up to you. So in my case, I enabled it only for the positive answers. So only if the answer is positive, all the other questions will appear. Now, important, how we say that the answer is positive. It doesn't mean that if it is yes, it is positive. When we create or when we edit our list of answers, the dynamic dropdowns, if we check the yes or no answers, for example, you will see that we have a checkbox positive. So only in the answer yes, we have the checkbox. So only with the answer yes, Classter will show the rest of the questions. Okay. Next, the other data. Here I have the list of all the other questions which are not connected to any admission document, document category. Okay, I have made them required, so let me upload a photocopy here. The health information, I have the option add new inside the admission data. So in case that an applicant has multiple health issues, he will be able to add multiple answers here. Again, I have used the positive and negative drop-down list. So if I answer no, I will not see the other questions. Next. We can also have signatures. Okay, and let's see how we can create consents. They are in the same menu, consents and admission data. When you initially open this menu, you will see automatically the admission data and not the consents, but you can change the view into the consents. So you will get the consents list. The options on the top are different between the previous admission questions in documentation and the consents. So if I want the consent, I have to create a new consent, of course. And let's see the settings. The layout is the same. Again, we can have multiple extra questions for each consent, but usually we only use the first one. The first field is, you will see that it is automatically enabled. Okay, this is the consent. This is the consent answer. It has to be yes or no or agree or disagree. Okay, and it is always enabled. Here we have the general description of the consent. The option if we want a signature or not. You will see that this consent doesn't have any signature, but that one has, about the recordings. So you enable the signature. Again, the filters have to do with the place that you will see the consent. So if there is no filter, you will see the consents in this step. Otherwise, you will see the consent after you select your program in the application management. Okay. So the first field is required. If you want, you can open additional questions here, which will come together with the consent. Exactly the same process that we saw in the admission data. So after I finish with my consents, the next step, actually, let me do it again. As you see, I always have save and next on the top and on the bottom of my screen. So in any case, the applicant cannot be confused. He has a step-by-step process with the required or not required questions. And after the consents, Classter will redirect me to the application management. Here, the first option is the application types. You can only have one application, new applicant. Otherwise, if you have progress or transfers or other types that you want to distinguish, you can add them in the drop-down lists in the application types we saw previously. Next. The next step is to select the program. We saw all the settings in order to close, hide these three options. Okay, in my example, I have all of them open. For example, let's say that we have multiple locations, so I want the applicants to select the location. Okay, now in this location, there is only one program and one degree. So Classter has automatically grayed out these fields. But I have multiple semesters. It's up to you. So if you close a semester, this will be hidden and everyone will be automatically saved in semester one, in the semester one. Okay, if you leave it open, they will be able to select. Next. Now, the next step in my example is the services. Okay, we have prices. We let the students to enroll to one or multiple services, and also the financial arrangement is automatically created. Let me show you how you can open the services enrollment. We ran out of time, but I believe that we can do 20 more minutes than the scheduled hour. We already saw in the admission settings that we have opened the online enrollments for the services. Let me. Sorry, this is in the application management. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. Give me a minute. Yeah, sorry, it is here. Yeah, it was in the sign up and applicants portal. If you scroll down in the personal data tabs to be visible in the admission. So here I have the enrollments open. The second setting is the online enrollment tab in the admission settings, where I have enabled the online enrollments for the services. Okay, enable the enrollments for the services, allow the students to cancel the enrollment if they want, automated arrangement creation after the enrollment. This is optional, you can either do it or not. Transition wizard to the payment screen after they submit the application. And let's see how we create the services and how we enable the specific services for the admission. So from the main settings, services, we can create a new service from the top. Here you will also see the application fee. This is something that we will see in the next step in our test. So both the application fee and any other activity or service in the institution are created here. So you will see that the application fee has a price of $50, for example, and we have also other services, library, lunch. It's all the services that I have here. So all we need to do here is to create a service. It can be also free. It's not required to have a price. And the applicants can still submit their enrollment. So we just need the description here, the start and the end date of the fee for that period. This is all we need from here. And from the second tab, billing and prices, we enable the billing, optional, as I said. The price, we are in the application fee, so we have the application fee price. The default plan for the arrangement, the down payment in the case of the application fee. And the billing plan is identical with the arrangement usually. This means that the invoices are issued based on the plan here, if it is one installment or more. And I have done the same with the other services, library services and so on. It is exactly the same thing. And finally, in order to open the services for the admission, it doesn't mean that all of these will be automatically open. We will have to create one classification from the main settings again, classifications. Let me search for the services. Okay, you create a new classification. I will edit the existing one. It is the same thing. So we have a description and an abbreviation. It will appear here. The classification type, well, the classification module is used for various reasons in the cluster. In our case, we want to use this classification for the online enrollments. So it should be online enrollments and admission. Okay, it doesn't have to do with marks or financing and so on. It is used for the online enrollments. Our classification will include services in this case. And finally, we select which services should be included for the admission. Okay. You see that I don't have all of them enabled, so only the enabled services will be visible. This is all we need for the services. I will enroll to one service and I will the next step. Now in this step, we can either save as draft or save and submit. Actually, let me do the process again and select another program because I want to show you some custom questions in the last step. Give me a minute. I will select the refresher course. You will see some extra questions here. Okay, the difference, this is still on admission data. The difference is that in this admission document, I have added filters, the program. So if I search for this admission document, from the admission data, you will see that I have filters per program. Okay, this is why this question will appear here after I select the program. Okay, now here the applicants have the option to save as draft and come back later to make changes if they want, or save and submit. Save and submit. This is an information message again. Let me show you how you can edit it. Right now we are in the application management. Okay, this means that as an admin in the admission settings, I will search for this info message in the application management. Okay, I will scroll down, and this is the application submission verification message. Here we must inform the applicant that this is final. They will not be able to make any changes. By clicking yes, they confirm all the data they have inputted. If they want to make any changes, they have to click on no. So this is configurable as well. By clicking yes here, in my example, I have enabled an application fee. Okay, this is the service we saw previously. It's not just to create the service, but in order to enable the application fee in the admission settings, in the financial and payment settings, you can ask for a payment before the submission. Okay, it is an application fee charge, and the application status, which will be automatically saved if the payment is succeed or if the payment is not a succeed. So if the payment is not succeed, then the status of the applicant will be awaiting payment. And finally, we will create this payment fee based on a service. Okay, and this is the service that we created previously. So we are using a service in order to create an arrangement and a payment for the application fee. And finally, for the payments, these settings are also required in order to automatically save the payment receipt after they pay. So enable the automated transactions, the transaction type. I will not explain all of them because they are mostly related to the financial module. Okay, so if you have the financial module open, you already know what to put here. But keep in mind that they are required. And also, in order to have this ability here, you must have enabled at least one payment gateway. Okay, so the advanced configurations and payment gateways must be already configured. You must have at least one payment gateway open. And also the general financial settings, you must have enabled the e-payments as well already. Okay, enable online payments, the allowed methods, and the payment gateways, the open payment gateways. So you can complete the integration with multiple payment gateways, and you can open only the ones that you want to use. Okay, so these are also required in order to be able to have this option here. Okay, so I just select, if I have options, I select the payment provider. I click on yes, and then Classter will redirect me to the provider's gateway to pay. I will not proceed to the payment. I will quickly switch to the application management, the back office users, and I will quickly explain how you change the status of the applicants when you take an application and you start reviewing and so on, and how you send the bulk emails. So first of all, every time that an application is submitted, the officers we saw before in the settings will receive a notification, an email. Then in the admission and application management, you will find all your applicants. you will find a lot of filters on the top. You can filter per intake in case that you have semester A, semester B as intakes, as we said before. You can filter per student status, take only the draft, for example, and communicate with them, or take all the accepted and send them the acceptance letter, and so on. The programs they have applied, the degree, and also advanced filters that you will find here, like the age, the nationality, and other filters. I will search for one test student I have. So after you receive the application, the first step is to take the applicant. You have the option to multiple select students from your list, and from the bulk actions, assign an application handler. Here you will find all your employees from your institute, so you can assign the admission officer who will take on this application. And then you can select one or more students, and from the change status option in the bulk actions, you will change the status into under review, for example, the next step. Everything depends on your processes, okay? In the example I wanted to explain, we will create a financial offer. I will do it very quickly. In general, in order to see the answers and the data of each student, what you do is just you open the student from here, click on the name. So it will open the student card. You will see all the personal details in the first screen, the address, the contact email, the phone. In the second tab, you will see the demographic data like ID number, nationality, and so on. And for all these admission questions, you will go to the admission data tab, and again, admission data. This is where you will find all these questions that the student answered during the application. Okay, you see this checkbox here. This is the submission checkbox we saw when we created the admission data. This is in order to say that, okay, this document is confirmed and reviewed. Okay. And finally, if you want to send a financial offer, from the tab Financial, of course, this may require also a configuration, a general configuration for your financial. But let's consider that you have financial and you have the financial is related to the course. So in that case, since the student is has applied to the fresher course, for example, I automatically have the default price. So I actually save the arrangement. I may add a discount, for example, or change the plan. Okay. So what I need to do in general is to save the arrangement. And this is how I actually create a financial offer. Since the student is still in admission status and I save the arrangement, this is how I create the offer. And then when I save the student, after I have the financial arrangement, the installments and everything, I save and close. Classter will redirect me to the list of applications. I take the student again. I change the status into provisionally accepted, waiting answer for offer. This is the status, the provisional type status. Okay, so from now, the student will have two options, accept or reject the offer, but I have to inform him about the offer. So using a template, again, a template email from the advanced configurations, the templates. In the admission templates, I have created some letters. Okay, if you create a completely new template, The type is admission, acceptance letter or other letter. It's up to you. In the acceptance letter, provisional acceptance letter, I have added the content that they should see the attachment PDF, see the offer, and then log into the portal and accept or reject. In order to send the offer, though, I use a report. Okay, I have created a custom report, in my case, an admission letter which includes the offer. We have a default report for this reason, but you can still create your own template. We can still create your own template. So the difference in this template is that I attach a report printout using the admission letter, attach the letter as PDF. So from the list of applications, I go to bulk actions. Again, I can do this for multiple students. And I send an application message. And here I will select my template. This is an acceptance letter, the provisional acceptance letter. You can have multiple letters, also other letters for any other reason, ask for further data or whatever reason. So I will send the acceptance letter, the provisional acceptance letter, and I will show you the email I received. So I have received this email where I have all the instructions to accept or reject the offer from the portal. And if I open the attachment, I have all the details about my offer. Okay, so now if I log in again as the applicant, actually I will refresh, no, sorry, I will log in with the correct applicant. So the applicant has received all the information in his own portal. Now he can see also the financial menu based on the status. And from the application management, he can accept or reject the offer. Okay, every time that someone accepts or rejects the offer, the officer will receive a notification again. So if I accept the offer, my status will automatically change to accepted offer. It is the settings we saw previously. After I accept the offer, we have enabled the transition to the payment screen. So here I also have the arrangement for my course, but I have the lunch fee as well. Okay, because previously I select the lunch fee from the services. So I have both. I can select one or multiple installments, and then I can pay again with the open payment gateways I have. Agree and proceed to the payment. And of course, again, all the transactions are automatically saved based on the settings we have. Okay, and the final, I would say, is that the final status after the student pays and we finalize the registration should be registered, not just an admission status, accepted, and so on. The final status is registered. The student must become registered in order to log into the registered student portal from now and on. Okay, because right now we are still in the admission portal. This is an admission portal. I cannot see my subjects, my timetable, my transcript, and so on. Okay. Well, that's all for today. We ran out of time, so I will stop here. I hope that this webinar will answer a lot of questions. Of course, me and my team are here if you need any customized assistance. Thank you for joining us again. Goodbye.